Regularly scheduled flights to Cuba from the U.S. have resumed, with Southwest, Delta, United, Spirit, Frontier, Alaska, and Florida-based Silver Airways having been given rights to fly between the two countries. But now the hard part begins. After 55 years, Cuban airports may not be ready for the influx of new flights between the two countries, but U.S. Airlines say they are confident. Here to discuss is WSJ middle seat columnist Scott McCartney. Hi, Scott. Great to see you.
Good to see you, Tanya.
So Cuba is just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. It should be an easy flight, right, Scott? I mean, Havana is just 3.5 hours from JFK. I know because I've flown from there.
Yeah, there you go. And from Miami, it's like flying from Dallas to Houston.
Right.
It should be a piece of cake.
So, and on top of that, Cuba already, as we know, has robust air service from 48 international airports. JetBlue and American Airlines have been flying charters there for years, which is what I flew on, and I didn't have any problems. So why is there the worry now about all these added American flights?
Well, there's a couple of factors going on. You're talking about a boatload of added service, a whole lot of flights in Havana, a whole lot of flights into 9 provincial airports scattered around the country. It's unclear whether, for example, in Havana, you probably flew to the charter terminal, which really is not a good facility. There is a very nice international terminal there, but it's full. So it's going to be tough for U.S. airlines dealing with antiquated facilities there. There are communication questions. There are technology questions. The embargo is still in place. So there are really sort of big questions that they've had to resolve of, could the airline insurers pay claims in Cuba if an accident happened? Or could U.S. banks process transactions for business in Cuba, even though it's done in the United States, because there is this embargo in place?
Now, what about technical systems? We know how much of flying now is based on sort of very sophisticated software. Are these systems all compatible?
Well, they're often not. Some are, some aren't. Obviously, because a lot of international airlines fly there, a lot of systems at the airport that U.S. airlines will link into, they're familiar with, they use elsewhere in the world, but some aren't. And there are some issues like handheld scanners communicating over wireless systems. Some U.S. airlines have had to go get chips from other countries and put them in their equipment because it'll work with Canadian or other chips, but not U.S. chips. One big issue that they've had to get waivers from governments on is encrypted software. So U.S. passenger airline systems, they protect passenger data, and encrypted software is banned for export to Cuba. So you have to get waivers for that. There are just a whole lot of issues that they've had to work through.
But Scott, it's interesting because U.S. airline executives say they're confident. They're saying cutting through a lot of this red tape has been easier than they expected, and they are bringing some changes, correct?
Yeah, I think they are, and the world international airline community is hopeful that they are, that this will spur modernization in Cuba with construction of more facilities, with updating of equipment. The U.S. airline officials say the Cuban officials have bent over backwards to really make this go well. American Airlines, for example, they've been training 210 airport workers. They're all government employees. In Cuba, everybody works for the government. And so the Cuban officials gave them very experienced people, average 20 years experience working with international airlines. They say the training has gone fantastic. They have learned the U.S. systems quickly, and it's been a whole lot easier than they thought it would be.
All right, so it's full speed ahead, all systems go. Worth noting, though, that U.S. travelers still do face legal restrictions, even though it's not clear whether the U.S. government is checking, but you still can't go for full tourism reasons, correct, Scott?
Right. You have to fall into one of 12 categories. You can self-certify now, but you can't just put, hey, I want to go to the beach. The beaches are fabulous. There are some great 4- and 5-star beach resorts that Europeans and Canadians have been going to for years, but don't put that on your application. You got to have a schedule that fits into one of the categories.
Not to mention, bring plenty of cash. Credit cards are still not working there, even though they say this is something that's coming.
Yeah, that'll be a long time.
Yeah.
Even your cell phone, some of the phone companies say they're now getting compatibility with Cuba. Some not so yet. And even things like waiting for luggage at the airport. It's a lot of manual systems. There's no checking in with your smartphone in Cuba. There are no kiosks to print your own boarding pass. Everybody's going to be waiting in line.
Got to have a little patience. All right. Thank you so much, Scott, for that.
Sure. Take care.